I have no idea what I'm going to talk about, and I feel nervous, so I'm meant to be here. I appear to be playing with a false premise that didn't look false, and I don't think I've got all the information around it. I like life to just come to me, and it does, and it's brilliant, and I have such a good time. I don't really plan for anything. I just fill up, and the next great thing comes. I don't advertise in my business. I don't have a website or a professional Facebook page, but I'm in about 14 countries, a 6-figure business, blah, blah, blah. And it's lots of fun. People just come and everything just comes. And normally when something appears, I say yes to it pretty quickly because I don't really care how it'll go. It's just fun to play, you know? And I've been kind of summoned. It looks like I'm being summoned out into the world a wee bit. And whereas normally I'd move very fast, I'm going slow.
First, let us just remind you that any summoning is because of the pieces that you've put into your vortex and the way that they have matured. It's you summoning you. It's not somebody else assigning you something. So when you say, I'm not really planning it, what you mean is, I planned it at incremental stages. I planned it by living life. I planned it by knowing what I don't want and knowing what I do want. I planned it by doing a lot of step 1. And now I'm really good at step 3. And so as I follow my bliss, as I follow my blissful impulses, then I find myself surprised and delighted by so many things that satisfy me. And isn't that just the best way to live? Yes. Yes.
So the lie that I'm telling myself is that I'm not having something to do with it.
Yes, it's not a lie. It's just a misunderstanding because most people don't realize that they've been asking and asking and asking. And the reason that most people don't realize it is because they've been asking and asking and asking and resisting without knowing it. So they put so much time between the time that they ask and the time that they receive that they're not relating it to themselves. Don't you think that's funny? And can you feel how invigorating it is to get your hands around this deliberate creation thing where you are deliberately asking and deliberately aware and deliberately minding your own vibration and deliberately minding your gap and deliberately paying attention to the way you feel so that as impulses come, you are able to make the correlation between the part that you played in it and the universe's response to it. That is where a feeling of true worthiness and empowerment comes from. If you're just blundering into living happily ever after, you think it's luck or chance or someone else is doing it. But when you make the correlation between the thoughts that you deliberately have been thinking and the emotions that you have deliberately been reaching for and the ideas that you have consciously been aware of as you're in the receiving mode, now that's that sweet spot that we're talking about. Yeah.
It feels a wee bit arrogant or cocky to put myself out there. It feels so much more fun to just appear to be summoned.
Well, play it any way you want. Really, because there is so much that is in your vortex that you couldn't identify it because you put it in there so incrementally. And so when you get in the receiving mode and the idea occurs, if you want to pretend that it just started just now and run with it, there certainly is nothing wrong with that. We just want you to know that the journey has been a long one. You see, the reason that we want to say to anyone, oh, there's way more to the journey than you are acknowledging is because we want them to feel the sureness that once they get the idea that it is a done deal, that it is a slam dunk, that it can be. But with someone like you who already knows that you get into that flow and off it goes, then maybe the rest of that story isn't essential to you because you're already in the receiving mode and blissfully allowing the things that you want to reveal themselves to you. And there's something else very powerful that we can feel within you, and that is you adore the element of surprise. You like so much for the universe to surprise you because you like to be in your cognitive awareness. You like to be tuned in. You really like that feeling of good timing. And something about making it sound like you planned it sort of takes that away from you, but it doesn't need to.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Really good. Really, really good. Second row.
So I want to talk a little bit about when we are in our source energy self, when I'm in my source energy self. This is my second time in the hot seat. One of my favorite stories from when I was in it before was being so close to Esther's body. And I would say that I could almost feel like she wasn't there. I could put my hand right through her. That I was just so aware of that vibration of Abraham.
Yeah.
So that I went away and I started doing that myself, trying to get myself into that place where my physical body would just melt away.
Or become less significant because of the dominance of the non-physical energy. Doesn't disappear. It's sort of like when you're watching a movie and they blur the background in order to highlight the foreground. It's like that. Your consciousness just sort of blurs what's less significant while it brings into focus what is more significant.
Okay. Healer, massage, Reiki, polarity, bunch of stuff.
That's why seeing energy is natural to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I take my students, my clients, on a guided visualization, where in the visualization I'm saying, imagine yourself, imagine, imagine, imagine. And what I've really come to, I don't want to manipulate them, I don't want to force them. So
you aren't. What's really happening, in the same way of these things that you've already described already, what's happening is you're taking yourself on that vision in order to let their physicality fade into the background while you bring their energy body forward for yourself. This is a story for you, not for them.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was wondering. I get there first, and then I invite them to join me.
And they might,
Okay.
but whether they do or not, you have accomplished what you are wanting and needing to accomplish in order to see them as your broader perspective sees them. This is you telling yourself the story that lets you see them through the eyes of Source. Because most healers in the Western world especially are looking at them as they are, which leads them nowhere. But as you guide yourself to see them as they really are, then you can guide them to where they really are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense to you, doesn't it?
Yes. And I guess that's it.
Yeah. And it was really good.
Thank you.
Really good. Yeah.
Oh, it is scary up here. So my question is, ever since I was a little kid, would have big imagination, big ideas, big downloads. It felt like just visual downloads.
Often receiving mode, often receiving mode,
Yeah.
often receiving mode.
Yeah. And then as I got older, they got more focused into my career area, which was great. And I still loved it. High flying, when they came through, was amazing. And I'd start to write them down. And for a long time, that was enough. I loved that. And that was good. But as my work progressed, it started to not be enough. And I wanted to make them things. And I feel as though...
Here's something important that we want to say to you before you get too far into this, is that now that you are aware of what the receptive mode really is, because there's a tendency to get involved in the action rather than the feeling of the receptive mode. So the function of writing or scripting or dreaming becomes an action that seems like it's dominant rather than a vibrational place from which you are doing it, which is dominant. You get what we're talking about? What we first want to say to you is that it should not take very long from that receiving of the idea, being in the receptive mode and receiving that idea, until there is a manifestation of it that follows. In other words, that should not be a long period of time. And if it's taking a long period of time, then that means that you're not in the receiving mode that you really think that you're in. You're maybe in a little bit of compensating mode where you're trying to make yourself feel better with visions to compensate for what's actually going on.
So I have a lot more work to do to actually get in alignment.
Not a lot more. It's just a little bit of understanding, just a little bit of tweaking. No, you don't need a lot more work. You're getting this. You're often in the receiving mode. It's just a slight understanding. It happens with Esther too, because she'll get an impulse to do something, and the impulse will be strong, and so she'll follow it through. And sometimes the impulse doesn't pan out to be something that was really the way she thought it was going to be. And then she'll realize, oh, well, I was in a different receiving mode than I really want to claim myself to be in. And when she actually takes the time to notice the correlation between what was going on and what she was actually feeling before that inspiration came, she will realize that sometimes she's just not there. Because sometimes she gets lazy like everybody else and responds to life instead of creating life, that reacts to circumstances rather than creating a vibration that then causes circumstances to be the way you want them to be. And all of that is just the way you learn to ride the bicycle. And as you get better and better and better and better at this, your bicycle's going faster and faster and faster and faster. And so it takes a more streamlined bicycle and better tires and more gears and more practice and.
So I have felt like there is this big thing that I'm meant to build or create, and it's almost like driven me the last 10 years. It's almost felt like it pulled me in direction in my life. And so is that me feeling what's in my vortex but trying to force it?
Yes, because being driven is different than being called. Sort of like pushing a noodle. Is the difference between motivation and inspiration. And it's just a slight receiving mode difference. That's all. It's not a big thing. You're going to be really pleased at how just a little more attention, a little more selfish attention to how you feel. And we really enjoyed the way you began this conversation, because you, and this is unusual, you actually have visceral memory of what it felt like to be that little girl feeling free. When you said those words to us, you reactivated that feeling, you see. So just say to yourself, I'm going to return to that blissful, carefree, less responsible feeling, open-ended, flowing vortex of creation. Because it's easy to pick up responsibilities along your physical trail that bog you down, you see. So just get rid of them, put the children out for adoption. Open the doors and tell your animals you're born free. We're just kidding. We are not really encouraging you to free everyone from your life experience, but we are encouraging you to reach for more free-feeling thoughts about the things that you are commonly thinking about.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Enough?
Yes, thank you.
Really good.